Next, we have Councilwoman Ryan and Councilman Majority Leader Taylor and Councilman Gun Cops. Councilwoman Ryan.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would just like to start by offering
Councilwoman, could you put your mic a little bit closer to you?
Can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
I think it's better, right, Mr. Clerk?
I would like to
Thank you.
start by offering my condolences to my dear colleague, Councilman Narducci. I know the close relationship that you had with our beloved City Sergeant Tassoni, so please accept my condolences as well. I would also like to start my remarks by recognizing the folks in our city that have been hurt, victimized, vilified, compromised in any way by this increase in violent crime that we have. The reality is, I hear time and time again at each community meeting, when I'm at the grocery store, where I'm at a street corner, people do not feel safe in our neighborhoods any longer. Something has happened. I have lived here all my life. I have the utmost respect for the Providence Police Department. As a council person from the get-go, I have dedicated myself to working with them to make sure they have all the resources they need to be effective in their jobs. And I want to thank my colleagues for supporting those efforts. Years ago, we led the country in community policing. We were heralded as a progressive, effective community police department. We've had, our numbers have dropped, our ranks have dropped, our challenges have grown. We've done more with less, or asked to do that. And I want to take this opportunity to commend Colonel Chief Clements. He is a remarkable man who's done a wonderful job leading our police department. I shudder to think where we would be if he was not in the leadership role that he is today. He is absolutely remarkable, and his presentation today was very interesting, and it gave me great confidence. However, I came here tonight to get a public safety plan, to understand what we're going to do going forward. People don't feel safe. We need to fix it. To me, the ATV situation was horrifying. The other day when I heard that report of a young woman pulled out of her car and her young child in the back and beaten on our city streets, it was absolutely unacceptable to me. And I have heard time and time again, I know the command staff appreciates that I have worked diligently on ATV legislation. I passed the legislation that gave due process rights and gave the police the authority to take the bikes off the street. That was what was asked. Again, this council, this body, continues to try to provide the resources that are requested from the police department. However, it's troubling for me, and again, once again, that ordinance has been copied in municipalities across the country. We were leaders. We're not a leader anymore. I recognize ATVs are a challenge. I'm a little disappointed that we haven't accepted the assistance from the state police sooner. I understand they're now working with us, and that's wonderful. But I want to be able to tell my neighbors, my residents, that there is a plan in place. There is a defined plan that is going to bring relief to this crime that has just skyrocketed. For the first time, I said I've lived in this neighborhood, my neighborhood that I represent, I grew up there. I'm hearing people are leaving. They're leaving the city because they don't have faith in the administration. When my colleague brought up ATVs, Colonel Parry, you responded. I'd like to hear from the chief of police. How can we employ the state troopers? How can we prevent? I come out of a council meeting, I drive on Smith Street, the very location that young lady was pulled out of her car, in. I had the same experience where bikers circled my cars. I talked to countless people, they have the same experience. That is unacceptable. It's unfathomable that that would happen in our city. And that is something we need to address. So what are your thoughts? What can be done? And I know Commissioner Parry said that you're working on it, and it's problematic. What can you do? What do you need from us to address the situation? Thank you.
So again, I've met with Colonel Manny on several recent occasions. We will accept the resources of the Rhode Island State Police as it pertains to our attempts to push down the ATV activity. Again, there is no magic solution on the ATVs. We talked about some pretty interesting things of which we can't reveal those strategies, but I will say this, because of our resources, not only ours, but theirs as well, we may not be able to deploy that more than, I'm hoping we can do it twice per week, but maybe not more than once per week. We just don't have the ability to set out those directed resources on ATVs every single day. It's a challenge, but I think once those riders know that we're more serious and we push back like we have done in the past, it curbs that activity a little bit. So it's a real tough challenge, I'll tell you.
Thank you. Just to follow up, if I may, Mr. President, I'm troubled that, we reported that 200 bikes were taken off the street. I'm well aware of that. The 200 bikes were removed from the street starting from 2017 to October of 2020. Subsequent to that, the mayor basically went to the General Assembly and asked to legalize ATVs on our streets. Many of my council colleagues were very concerned and expressed concern about that action. Obviously, that was pulled back, and he subsequently has retracted. Is he still interested? And Commissioner Parry, can I ask you directly? Is it the mayor's intention to legalize ATVs? Is that something that is still a plan for him?
I'll say that I think it continues to be a consideration for the legalization of some of these ATVs. And this is a plan that some other cities have deployed. And he and the administration looked at that model. So my response is, I think it continues to be a consideration. Whether it's, moving forward, certainly it had not moved forward formally in this latest session of the General Assembly, but it is a consideration.
So the thought is to legalize, would you register these bikes, or would they be unregistered ATVs on our street?
No, the plan that I saw in other cities were to give legislatively the ability to register these vehicles. And so the thought is, if they're legal bikes, they're safe bikes, they have all the equipment that is required of vehicles to be traveled on our roadways, then it'll be safer. Registering them obviously would enhance our ability to identify who they are, and also the requirement of insurance. That's the model that was used in other cities, and that's the model that was under consideration this session, and I believe under consideration for next session.
Colonel Clements, what do you think of legalizing ATVs?
I have a problem with that, to be honest with you, in that, look, I think we should look at locations where they can utilize these vehicles off-road, not on city roads. I think in dense populations, it creates a huge public safety issue. And there's where the mixed messaging is. I mean, if, from the standpoint of the rank and file, from the standpoint of the command staff, for us to go out there and direct the workforce to take some of these bikes off the street, It's hard, and that's why I'm asking for support before operations and after, because it's all about risk. And I've spoken to City Solicitor Jeff Dana, who does a great job working hand in hand with the police department, and we appreciate that, Jeff. It's everything that we do is risk management. And there are so many things that can go wrong if we become aggressive on rooting out ATVs and scooters, because they're all-terrain vehicles. They're small vehicles. They can go up on sidewalks. They're operating reckless, lawless, and we can't do that in city vehicles. And nobody wants to be the next officer or two who's acting in an aggressive manner, and then they're not given the support. And I fully understand that. And
What is, if I can interrupt you, sir, what is your message to our residents when their cars are circled by these ATVs? What is one to do? What advice would you give them?
it's happened to all of us in police cars. It's happened to me. I heard a story from a neighboring chief of police. It happened to him in Boston. 60 bikes and scooters surrounded him in Boston. And there are many municipalities that have, and I identified it, the no chase policy. We do not have a no chase policy, but we do have a pursuit policy, which allows them to pursue them safely. So, look, we're going to be taking some steps coming up to become more aggressive in going after these bikes, and we have to do so with some strategy. And myself and Colonel Manny and Commander Verdi have talked about some of those strategies and initiatives, but we have to be cautious and do it with risk in mind. It's a huge issue. If we pursue a vehicle and go through a red light and that ATV or scooter strikes and kills a pedestrian, or worse, we do, that's an issue. And those are the things that can happen when you have pursuits of these vehicles. That's why all those municipalities have a no chase policy.
On the no chase policy, if I can just follow up, perhaps when I speak with rank and file, they're told.
Councilwoman, please speak in the mic.
Sorry, sir. When I speak with rank and file, I hear time and time again that they're told that they are not to chase ATVs. And I use that same language, Colonel, that we have a chase policy, or pursuit policy, excuse me. I use that language with them, and I am told that's not the case. We're told not to chase ATVs.
That is true. We're told not to chase ATVs. We teach, and our policy states that the safest way to take these down is when we can corner one or two of them, or to get them when they're not operational. And that's how we've gotten many, and that's how Philadelphia has been successful. When there's, maybe you can grab them at a red light in a gas station, parked on the side after you've seen them committing violations on the roadway, or you know it's not registered. So that's how we've captured many. To be in high-speed pursuits with marked vehicles is not safe, and there's a lot of risk.
Thank you very much. Just one last question and I'm done. When we discipline an officer, how does that play out? Who makes the determination that discipline is warranted? Is that the commissioner?
So we speak about discipline all the time, and by charter, yes, in the end, it's the commissioner by the charter.
Okay. With your consent, or is it solely?
Hey, look, the commissioner and I, we've been together for a long time in the leadership of the Providence Police. We agree on a lot. We don't always agree on every single aspect of what we talk about, including some levels of discipline. But for the most part, we've agreed, but there are times, and we've been on record in public meetings where he'll take one stance, I'll take another. Yes, that has happened. And we've continued to have a very good and professional relationship, but do we always agree? No, I don't think. I know in this council, I see oftentimes, I don't see many unanimous votes here.
Once in a while, we all agree. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the time, and thank you all for your testimony today and your responses.
Thank you, Councilwoman.